Good afternoon, and welcome to the end of week market review for Friday, May 3rd, 2013. There's going to be a few things that we'll cover off today. First off, we want to take a look at the market news. We just want to get an idea of what's been going on a global scale and see how it's been affecting the rest of the markets. We're going to take a look at an economic report. We're going to be able to use this to get an idea of what's been going on and how it's also been affecting the markets. We're then going to go ahead and take a look at some technical analysis charts. While we're doing this, we'll be looking at both the S&P 500 and the Toronto Stock Exchange. We'll be looking at both daily charts and weekly charts on both short-term and long-term time frames. We'll then go ahead and take a look at our volatility index and then one of our great picks. So we can see that today ended up being a great day in the markets. In fact, the Dow Jones broke above 15,000 and the S&P above 1,600. A lot of the day's gains were because of some positive jobless reports. We also had some good strong earnings that helped the markets as well. All in all, the Dow Jones is up 1.78% from last week's close, while the S&P 500 is up 2% from last week's close. While taking a look at oil, we can see that it is currently up 9.78%. This puts it to $96.61. Silver up is only 0.5% from last week. This puts it to $24.09 per ounce. And finally, we've got gold up 5.02%. This is from last week's close, putting it to $1,470 per ounce. And finally, we've got the US Canadian pair down 0.70% from last week's close. This now puts it to 1.0100 pips. If you take a look at the economic reports, the one thing that really stands out is the jobless reports. They're expecting 345,000 submissions, and actually what we ended up seeing was 324,000. Because we had less than expected, we were able to see a good strong rise in the markets today. Here we're looking at the S&P 500 on a daily chart, and you're going to notice that we did end up trying to break through the resistance line that was put in place here about a month ago. We had two attempts, and it really wasn't until today that we were able to see a clean breakout. Not only did we break above that resistance, but we also broke up above 1,600. We are now at a high that we haven't seen in at least the last 5 years. Actually, if you look at our weekly chart, you're going to see that this is the highest that the S&P 500 has been since 2003. While looking at the S&P 500 here on the weekly chart, you're going to be able to see very clear as day that yes, we've had a really good run, but you are also going to notice that every time we've had a great run, we have had a pullback, at least down to the 40 EMA, which is this black line here. This has happened twice now in the last 6 months. We thought that it was probably going to do that recently here, but it ended up breaking up and continuing its extent. Now here we are looking at the S&P 500, really just capturing everything until 2003. You can see that we really haven't been this high at all. So definitely some pretty significant times in the markets. It leaves the markets very overbought, where we're going to expect that the markets should pull back. Though, given the fact that it's been rising for as long as it has, we have to question how long it's going to go before it does. Now here we are looking at the TSX on the daily chart. When you look at this, you're going to see that we've basically hit some resistance at the 50 EMA, which happens to be around 12,500. Now the MACD is rising bullish, and with the black line over top of the blue line. So it's very possible that we could see some breakthroughs, but we ended up having that stalled point here with actually some overhead resistance at a trend line as well. So we got a few things that we have to worry about with the TSX. Now this becomes more clear when we look at the weekly chart. You can see that we've had a good couple of weeks, but when you compare it to what's been going on over the last 6 months, for example, you're going to see that we have had a strong cycle, but we have a lot of work to go before we can start seeing some higher highs beyond the 6 months. Here we're looking at the same time frame as before in the S&P 500, where we've zoomed all the way back to 2003. While we're looking at this, we can see that in order for the TSX to be above and beyond and at its 10-year high, we would need to see a breakout above 15,000. So changing gears here and going back to the US markets, we can see that the volatility indicator is currently at 12.83. We know that its average trading range has been between 12 and 14 throughout 2013, so it's great that we see it sitting right within its normal trading range. Currently, it is down 5.58% from last week's close. Now, although we haven't had a ton of picks show up on our watch list this last week, a lot of the concern has been because of earnings reports, as well as just the little bit of turmoil that we had in the markets. But right now, we are looking at a pick that was chosen for our US ITL customers. Now, this pick was chosen on April 30th, 2013. You're going to see here where the mouse is pointing exactly what we have here. Obviously, all the markets were looking pretty good at that time. We have a white candle. Our 5 EMA is rising. Our other indicators, the MACD, the stochastics, the RSI, they're all looking great too. There's also a nice increase in volume. Ended up having a order filled the next day, and then the day after that we ended up reaching our profits, which ended up being at around the 22 EMA. All in all, that means we got 1.20% within a few days of trading. So definitely something that was nice to see, especially with the amount of confusion in the actual markets themselves. Now, if you have any questions about anything that we've discussed today, please contact us at either our email address or our phone number, both of which are listed on the screen. And as always, we would encourage you to continue to trade by the books, always making sure that you know exactly what your exit strategies are before you get into your trade. Ultimately, though, any trade decisions that you make are your own, so you'll always want to make sure that you're exercising caution. This has been the end of week market review for Friday, May 3rd, 2013. Ciao for now.